The sun crested the canopy, painting the meadow in soft gold. Rabbits darted through the tall grass,
and deer grazed undisturbed near the stream. Then the rhythm of the morning broke. The earth shuddered under a heavy, rhythmic weight. The deer froze, ears swiveling toward the ridge. A massive lion stepped into the clearing,
his claws gouging deep furrows into the soil. He did not hunt, he occupied. He opened his jaws and let out a roar that vibrated through the rib cages of every creature in the woods.
The birds stopped mid-flight, dropping into the dense brush.
The silence that followed was absolute. The lion paced the ridge,
his gaze sweeping over the meadow like a physical weight. He stopped, stared at the trembling animals, and bellowed, "I am the king, and this forest is my larder." The peace of the meadow vanished.
The deer backed away, hooves clacking against stone, while the lion watched, his patience cold and absolute. Every movement in the forest now served his hunger.
Deep within a hidden cave, the forest creatures gathered, their breath shallow and ragged.
The deer paced the dirt, hooves clacking in a frantic, uneven rhythm. If we run,
"We die," the deer said, his voice trembling as he looked toward the cave entrance.
The elephant stomped the ground, the impact shaking dust from the ceiling. "Send one of us to him each day," the elephant countered, "so the rest may live." The proposal hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. There were no objections. The terror outside was absolute, and the cost of survival was now a daily toll. They emerged from the shadows, approaching the lion on his ridge. He watched them with a slow, calculated blink. He accepted the terms with a sharp nod, his tail lashing once, twice. From that day, the forest changed. The birds did not sing. The wind seemed to hold its breath. Each morning, one animal walked to the ridge alone, and each evening, the lion feasted. The silence that gripped the woods was no longer a sign of peace, but a mark of the ongoing, grim sacrifice. The turn fell to the rabbit. He stood by the stream, watching the water rush over the stones. He watched his reflection, steady and unmoving. He did not tremble. He turned and began the long hop toward the ridge, moving with a rhythm that defied the terror of the forest. The sun reached its peak,
casting long, sharp shadows over the dirt. The lion was already waiting, his tail lashing the air like a whip. He paced in tight, aggressive circles, his claws tearing at the earth with every turn. "You are late," the lion growled, his teeth bared, catching the harsh light. The rabbit stopped 10 paces away.
He bowed low, his ears pressed flat against his head. "A second lion stopped me," the rabbit whispered, his voice steady. "He claims he is the true king of this forest." The lion froze.
His fur bristled along his spine, and his golden eyes widened with sudden, violent focus. "Where?" the lion roared,
the sound shaking the trees. "He hides nearby," the rabbit replied, gesturing toward the deeper woods.
The lion let out a low, guttural snarl and lunged forward, his patience shattered by the threat to his throne. "Take me to him," the lion commanded, his hunger forgotten in the heat of his fury.
The rabbit hopped toward the ancient, moss-covered well, his movements precise and measured.
He halted beside the crumbling stones and pointed a tiny paw into the dark, circular opening.
The lion shoved his head into the space, his breath rattling in his throat. He looked down into the black water. Below him, a pair of golden eyes stared back with identical intensity. The lion let out a thunderous roar, his body trembling with rage. The reflection roared back, the sound echoing against the damp, stone walls. The lion snarled, his muscles bunching as he prepared to crush the intruder. He did not think. He did not hesitate. He launched himself into the narrow opening, claws splayed to strike.
He hit the water with a heavy, hollow splash that silenced the forest. The impact sent ripples against the mossy walls, but there was no ground to grip. The sides were smooth, slick with age, and far too steep to climb. The lion thrashed, his heavy form dragging him down as he gasped for air that was no longer there. He sank into the cold, dark silence of the well. His reign ended not in blood, but in the depths of his own vanity. The rabbit turned away, his heartbeat steady, as he began the journey back to the meadow. The rabbit reached the meadow as the sun began to dip toward the horizon. He stood at the edge of the tall grass and let out a single, clear sound. Silence held for a heartbeat. Then the forest stirred. From the shadows of the hidden cave, the deer stepped out, her hooves clicking on the dry earth. Behind her, the elephant emerged, his heavy gait slow and deliberate. More animals followed, ears twitching, eyes scanning the perimeter for a threat that was no longer there. They gathered in a circle around the rabbit.
The tension that had defined their lives for months began to evaporate. A bird landed on a low branch and started a tentative,
melodic song. Others joined until the air was filled with a chorus that had been absent for far too long. The animals looked to the rabbit, then toward the distant, dark well. They understood. The elephant nudged the rabbit forward. He hopped up onto the ridge, the golden light of the setting sun framing his small form against the expanse of the woods. He looked out over the trees, now quiet and still. The fear had passed. The meadow was open, the streams were free, and the forest belonged to them once more. They would live in peace, guided by the memory of how the smallest among them had brought the great beast down.